This morning's gospel is a chronicle of God's generosity. Give us this day our daily bread. Ask, and you shall receive. Knock, and the door will be opened. Ask, and it will be given to you. What do we make of this in a world that seems to be filled with inequality? Years ago, when I was in high school, there was a popular movement called Band Aid. Some of you may remember it. It was a group of rock musicians who came together surrounding the issue of world hunger. And I remember being quite proud that a native of Vermont, my home state, called Harry Chapin, was given a congressional medal for his work with Band Aid. And he was famous for getting very impassioned when he spoke about this. And one of his lines I'll never forget goes like this. He said, "There's enough food to feed the population of the world 3 times over. Why are children hungry?" That's a good question. We have the promise of an abundant God, and we live in a world that has a very unequal system for distribution. So as Christians, what do? How do we respond? We know of God's generosity of grace and of love and of spirit. How do we somehow become bridges between that abundance and sharing with those who we know are in need? There's a theologian by the name of Donald Kimball, and he came up years ago with the concept of what he called the wedge. And you could actually draw it out. It's sort of a line going in this direction and a line going in this direction, kind of a triangle on its side. And he said that the wedge is how Christians do outreach. And I cast around St. Mark's this week, and I came up with the cornucopia, which is down in the basement by the Flower Guild, and it comes up every Thanksgiving as kind of an example of how the wedge works and a way to describe it. When it comes to doing Christian outreach, the widest part, the biggest part of the wedge is our own personal generosity. It's when we give out of abundance to those in need. And my goodness, does St. Mark's know how to do that? Wow. We're given yet another example this morning of, after church, making a meal to take down to street church later on this afternoon. And we're all going to be invited to help make a little bit of that meal if we wish to do so. And anyone who wishes to go down to street church and see what that's all about can do that as well. We all enter into the spirit of generosity. We can give from ourselves. Yet that's not completely into the wedge. It's only the beginning. For the next step is to ask, what are those conditions that are going on in our world that need to be addressed? I want to learn more. I want to be informed. I want to understand. I want to be educated about these issues. And when one is educated, one suddenly does more than give out of generosity. They give tools to empower those in need to begin helping themselves. It's that old familiar idea. Remember, give a person a fish and they'll eat for a day. Teach the person to fish and they will be able to eat for a lifetime. We become educated. We take another step of empowering those people to begin to help themselves. In our cornucopia here, I've put some work gloves and a hammer and a picture of the latest Guatemala trip, GT6. And in that picture is not just the travelers from St. Mark's, although we're all there. We're surrounded by the native Guatemalans who are now teaching us how to build such things as the alpha composting latrine, how to help them. In there is Tono, head of the health project, and his assistant Julio, and Angel, who's the expert latrine builder, and Lourdes, who manages to somehow keep everything running together smoothly during the day. These are native Guatemalans who have learned how to make a difference. As I mentioned last week, they have learned how to help us transform a sewer into a clear stream of water running by this little home in La Labor. That's the next step in the wedge. But you know, it's not all the way to the end. Because Donald Kimbrough realized that once you decide to give and learn why you give, and you practice this regularly, once we do this, something else happens. Some inner transformation happens. And we begin to wonder, what is it in our world that's causing all of this inequality anyway? What is it? And how can I affect it? How can I live my life in a way that makes just a little difference in someone else's life? A little difference in the world. And when we do that, we undergo a spiritual epiphany. And he puts that way down in the wedge because it's something that we struggle with so hard. And many of us aren't able to come through the other side of that transfiguring moment. We can't do it. Can I tell us this morning how to go about it? I can't. Because that transfiguring moment is as unique as each and every person sitting here. But I can say that it involves a few things I've put way back at the bottom of the cornucopia. I've put a chalice in there to talk about shared ministry and community and doing things together as the church. I've also put all the way in the back the prayer book, open to the baptismal covenant, because I believe that those words which we say every time there's a baptism, and indeed every time we want to open the prayer book and remind ourselves of the commission we have as Christians, every time we do that, we are brought just a little bit closer and given a glimpse of that transfiguration. When we ask, what can we do to help transform the world? This past trip down to Guatemala, we experienced a glimmer of that for the very first time in the over a decade of going down to Guatemala. We had a unique experience. There's an American company right now that has moved into the little village of La Labor, where we have done so much work. And they want to mine gold from the Guatemalan hillside. And they do so by injecting water into the hill, and there's some complicated extraction process, and the gold comes out. The problem is they treat the water with arsenic to go in to make it most effective, and there's no regulation in Guatemala that says they have to clean up the arsenic when it comes out. So parents are bringing children to the doctors asking, why is my child sick? The child has arsenic poisoning. The people of La Labour are one of 4 communities that have decided enough is enough, and they're going to stand up against it. The resistance in La Labour, however, is the only one of those 4 that's a non-violent protest. So you have to imagine this little Guatemalan village, these peasant farmers trying to be peaceful, lying down on the road and facing the danger of 2,000 Guatemalan riot police in full gear trying to walk over them to get to this gold mine. Today, there is not 1 ounce of gold coming from that mine in La Labour. There are 30 people camped out round the clock in a little village at the entrance to that gold mine, and they will not let people through. And no gold is happening, and no arsenic is going into the water supply of La Labour. What a testament to those people. And so our group heard of this, and we went to visit them and sat down with them. And if you go to YouTube on the St. Mark's channel, you will be able to watch the interview of those leaders of the resistance, one of which is right in the middle of the picture here, standing up for something that they believe in, or in this case, lying down on the road for something they believe in, and being successful. And what did we do? What did the great St. Mark's Guatemala team, what could we accomplish to assist them in their ministry of resistance? We could graciously sit down and were offered a free meal with their thanks for just showing up and expressing an interest in trying to make a difference. My friends, if that is not grace, if that does not help lead us to a transforming, transfiguring moment, I don't know what will. I have no idea where that's going to go, but I do know that this grace-filled, loving God that we all adore on this day intends for creation something far more than we can begin to glimpse. And this God gives each of us, in however small a glimmer, the potential, the possibility, and the challenge to change the world for the better. Let us all commit ourselves to being on a journey through that wedge, through that generosity, into that transforming place. For we can change the world. Amen.
Nadie explica quiénes son,
And no one explains who they are.
Él es el padre
So he's
Paul
the Father
de una
Paul
parroquia
from the parish
de Estados Unidos,
in the States.
y el compañero y la
His
compañera
friend, these 2 friends
son como personas de la que pertenecen a esta parroquia, ¿verdad?
from that parish.
Ajá. Y pues ellos
so they
vinieron a trabajar una
come
semana
to work
al proyecto
for
Salud Sangre de Cristo,
A week
como
with the Blood of Christ
a hacer
project
servicio como social,
to
¿verdad?
do some social service there.
Entonces hoy
And so today
dispusieron que querían venir a
they
conocer
said they really wanted to
aquí la
come here
resistencia,
to see the
y pues
resistance.
como lo bueno que nosotros tendríamos en este caso
And the good thing that we have in this
es
case
de que
is
ellos
that
puedan denunciar allá en
they
Estados
can
Unidos
make
lo que
the
está pasando aquí, ¿verdad?
denunciations in the U.S. about what's
Y que
happening
ellos y ellas
And that they
conozcan directamente y no solo que uno les cuente, ¿verdad?
here. And not just other people tell you, but that you can hear from us ourselves.